The attorney cleared his throat and read, "The beach house at 47 Dune Road, including all furnishings and future rental income, I bequeath to my daughter Victoria, as she has always appreciated beauty and will honor the home properly." And I felt my coffee cup slip slightly in my hand because I was the one who paid $156,000 for that house 8 months ago. My stepfather Richard leaned back in his leather chair with a smile that looked like victory and said, "Your mother wanted it to stay in the real family," and suddenly I understood that I spent the last year of my mother's life funding a legacy I was never meant to be part of. The question wasn't whether I'd been betrayed, the question was whether the deed in the county records said what I thought it said. Drop a comment and let me know where you're re-listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. My name is Dr. Bellamy Cross. I'm 44 years old, and I'm an anesthesiologist at Piedmont Regional Hospital in North Carolina. My job is to keep people unconscious and alive simultaneously, to calculate precisely how much medication will render them insensible to pain without rendering them dead. It requires math, intuition, and a tolerance for other people's crises. Apparently, I'd been practicing on my family for years. My mother, Margot, was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer 14 months ago. The prognosis was 8 months, maybe less. She'd been a real estate agent in the Outer Banks for 30 years, successful, connected, the kind of woman who could sell a flood-damaged property by calling it an investor's opportunity. She'd married my father when she was 22, had me at 23, and divorced him when I was 7. She remarried when I was 12 to Richard, a contractor who specialized in beach house renovations, and came with a daughter, Victoria, who was 10. Victoria and I were never sisters. We were two girls who shared space in a house where the attention and resources always flowed in one direction. Victoria was delicate, artistic, needed protecting. I was sturdy, practical, didn't need anything. That was the narrative. I followed it for 30 years. When my mother got the diagnosis, she called me first. Not Richard. Not Victoria. Me. "Bellamy, honey, I need to tell you something." Her voice was steady, but I could hear the fracture underneath. "I have cancer. Pancreatic. Stage 4. They're saying 8 months. I was in the hospital parking lot between surgeries. I sat down on a concrete barrier and I did what I always do, I shifted into clinical mode. What's the treatment plan? Surgery? Chemo? What did the oncologist say? They said we could try chemo, but the survival rate. She trailed off. I don't want to spend my last months sick from treatment. I want to spend them at the beach. The beach. My mother had always talked about retiring to a beach house. She'd shown properties for decades but never bought one for herself. Too expensive. Too impractical. Always next year. Okay, I said. Do you want to rent something? I can help you find. No. Her voice firmed up. I want to buy one. I want one final place where the family can make memories. Where you and Victoria can bring your family someday. A legacy. I didn't have a family. I'd never married. No kids. My life was the hospital, my condo, and a book club I attended sporadically. But I didn't say that. That's a big purchase, Mom. Have you talked to Richard about financing? The housing market is tight right now, and Richard's business has been slow. We don't have the capital for a down payment. She paused. I know you've been responsible with money. I know you've done well. And I hate to ask, but if there was ever a time, this is it. This is my dying wish, Bellamy. One place. One last beautiful thing. My dying wish. She deployed the nuclear option in the first conversation. How much are we talking about? There's a property in Nag's Head. 2-bedroom, walking distance to the beach. It needs work, but Richard can do the renovations. I did the math. Down payment, $68,000. Renovations on a beach house that needs work, easily $80,000 to $100,000. Total, $150,000 to $170,000. I had the money. I'd been maxing out my retirement accounts since residency. I lived modestly. I drove a 7-year-old Honda. I had $240,000 in savings outside of retirement. Let me look at the property first, I said. We drove down the following weekend, me, my mother, Richard, and Victoria. The house was a 1970s ranch-style box about 4 blocks from the ocean. It had water damage, outdated electrical, and a kitchen that looked like it hadn't been updated since Carter was president. But it had good bones. And my mother's face, when she walked through it, looked like she was seeing something I couldn't. This is it, she said. This is the place. Richard was already making notes. New roof. Rewire the whole house. Gut the kitchen and bathrooms. New flooring throughout. I can do most of the labor myself, but materials. I looked at Victoria. She was taking photos for Instagram. She hadn't said a word about the house, the cost, or the plan. What do you think, Victoria? I asked. She looked up from her phone. I think it'll be gorgeous once it's fixed up. Very coastal grandmother aesthetic. Very coastal grandmother aesthetic. Are you planning to contribute to the purchase or renovation? I asked. Victoria blinked at me like I'd spoken in Mandarin. Oh, I'm between jobs right now. Marketing is such a tough field. But I'll definitely be here for decorating. I have amazing taste. Richard put his arm around Victoria. She's right. She's got an eye for design. Once Bellamy handles the financials and I handle the construction, Victoria will make it a showplace. Once Bellamy handles the financials. My mother took my hand. Bellamy, I know it's a lot to ask. But this is everything to me. Knowing that you and Victoria will have this place after I'm gone, it's the only thing giving me peace. You and Victoria will have this place. You and Victoria will have this place. I should have gotten that in writing. I paid the down payment. $68,000, wired to the title company. Then I paid for the renovation. New roof, $14,000. Electrical rewiring, $8,500. Kitchen renovation, $32,000. Bathroom renovations, $18,000. New flooring, $11,000. Paint, fixtures, appliances, furniture, $22,000. Total, $105,500. Combined with the down payment, $173,500. But I didn't stop there. When Richard said the HVAC system needed replacing, I paid for it. $12,500. When my mother wanted custom window treatments to make it feel finished, I paid for them. $4,200. Final total, $190,200. Let's call it $156,000 after Richard's labor discount, which I later realized was a fabrication since he billed me for materials at retail prices and pocketed the contractor discount. The house took 4 months to renovate. My mother moved in June. She had 3 months left. I visited every weekend. I'd drive down Friday after my shift, stay through Sunday morning, then drive back for Monday surgeries. My mother would sit on the deck, wrapped in blankets even in the summer heat, and tell me how grateful she was. This place is perfect, Bellamy. I'm so at peace here. Knowing it'll be here for you girls, it's everything. You girls. Always plural. Even though Victoria visited exactly twice in 3 months, both times to take photos for social media with captions like, grateful for the sanctuary waterwave #blessed #family first. My mother died in September. Hospice in the beach house, just like she wanted. I was there. Richard was there. Victoria arrived for the last 2 days. After the funeral, Richard said we'd handle the will reading in a few weeks. Let's all grieve first, he said. The will reading was yesterday. Richard's attorney's office in Kitty Hawk. Me, Richard, Victoria, and the lawyer, a man named Douglas Pritchard who wore too much cologne and had the sympathetic expression of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. He read through the preliminaries. Small bequests to friends. My mother's jewelry split between Victoria and me. Her car to Richard. Then he got to the property. Regarding the real estate asset located at 47 Dune Road, Nags Head, North Carolina, I bequeath this property in its entirety including all furnishings, future rental income, and mineral rights to my daughter Victoria Cross Bennett, as she has always appreciated beauty and will honor the home properly with the love and care it deserves. The words hit me like propofol, sudden, complete, disorienting. I looked at Victoria. She was crying delicately into a tissue. Richard had his arm around her. I don't understand, I said. I paid for that house. The down payment, the renovation, everything. Douglas looked at me with practiced sympathy. The property is titled in your mother's name and your stepfather's name as joint tenants. Your mother had the right to bequeath her share as she saw fit. But I paid. Gifts are not loans, Miss Cross. Unless you have documentation showing an expectation of repayment or shared ownership, the funds you provided were legally gifts to your mother. Richard leaned forward. Bellamy, your mother thought very carefully about this. She knew Victoria would appreciate the house. She knew Victoria would maintain it properly. You're so busy with the hospital, you wouldn't have time for a beach house. Your mother wanted it to stay in the real family. The real family. I looked at Victoria. She was still crying. She met my eyes and whispered, I'm sorry, Bellamy. I didn't know Mom was going to do this. But she's right, I'll take such good care of it. You can visit anytime. Visit. The house I'd bought. I stood up. I need to make a call. I walked out of the office. I sat in my car. I pulled out my phone and called my real estate attorney, a woman named Sandra Kim who'd helped me buy my condo. Sandra, I need to ask you something about a property. If I paid for a house, down payment and renovations, but the deed is in someone else's name, do I have any legal claim? Depends. Whose name is on the deed? I think it's my mother and stepfather. Joint tenants. But I paid $156,000 in total costs. Was there a written agreement? A promissory note? Anything documenting that it was a loan or that you were purchasing an ownership stake? No. It was just, she asked me to help. It was her dying wish. Sandra sighed. Bellamy, without documentation, it's legally considered a gift. But let me look up the property. What's the address? I gave it to her. I heard her typing. Okay, I'm looking at the county records. 47, Dune Road, Nag's Head. The deed was recorded, wait. She went quiet. Bellamy, who told you your mother's name was on the deed? My stepfather. And the attorney just said it was jointly titled to my mother and stepfather. The attorney is wrong, or he's looking at old records. According to the current deed filed with Dare County, the sole owner of 47, Dune Road is Bellamy J. Cross. You. The deed was recorded 4 months ago when you purchased the property. It was never transferred to your mother's name. I sat in my car. The words didn't make sense. Say that again. You own the house. Your name is on the deed. You purchased it with your funds, and the title was never changed. Your mother had no legal right to bequeath it because she never owned it. I looked at the attorney's office. Through the window, I could see Richard talking animatedly. Victoria was on her phone. Sandra, I need you to draft an eviction notice. For who? For anyone currently residing at 47, Dune Road who is not Maine. Are you sure? This is going to create. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I hung up. I walked back into the office. Douglas was organizing papers. Richard and Victoria were discussing renovations they wanted to make, a hot tub, a pergola, new deck furniture. I'm sorry to interrupt, I said. My voice was calm. Clinical. Anesthesia steady. But I need to clarify something. Mr. Pritchard, can you tell me where you got the information that my mother owned 47, Dune Road? Douglas looked at Richard. Mr. Bennett provided the property documentation for the will. Did you independently verify ownership with the county records? We relied on the documents Mr. Bennett provided showing joint tenancy. Those documents are fraudulent. I just spoke with my attorney. According to Dare County records, I am the sole owner of 47, Dune Road. My name is on the deed. It was never transferred to my mother or Mr. Bennett. My mother had no legal right to bequeath property she didn't own. The room went silent. Victoria's mouth opened. Richard's face went red. That's impossible, Richard said. I handled the closing. I was there. We discussed putting it in Margot's name for estate planning. Then you committed fraud, I said. Because the deed says otherwise. And I have the county records to prove it. I pulled out my phone. I showed them the email Sandra had just sent, a PDF of the recorded deed. Property address, 47, Dune Road. Owner, Bellamy J. Cross. Date recorded, June 3rd, 4 months ago. Douglas looked at the document. His face went pale. Mr. Bennett, did you forge property documents? Richard stood up. This is ridiculous. Margot wanted Victoria to have that house. She told me so. If there's a paperwork error, we'll fix it. We'll transfer the deed now. Bellamy, you said yourself it was your mother's dying wish. My mother's dying wish was for a beach house where the family could make memories. She never said she wanted to own it. And she certainly never said she wanted to cut me out of it entirely after I paid for everything. I looked at Victoria. You knew, didn't you? You knew Mom didn't own it. That's why you never contributed anything. You were waiting for her to die so you could claim I'd gifted it to her. Victoria's tears had dried up. Her face was hard now. You have everything, Bellamy. Your career, your money, your perfect life. Mom wanted me to have one thing. One thing that was mine. You're so selfish you can't even let me have this. I'm selfish? I stood up. I paid $156,000 for that house. I visited every weekend. I held our mother's hand while she died in a house I bought. And you showed up for Instagram photos and inheritance. But sure, I'm the selfish one. I turned to Douglas. Mr. Pritchard, I'd recommend you review your due diligence procedures. Accepting forged property documents from a beneficiary's spouse is a liability issue. I walked out. By the time I got home, Sandra had drafted the eviction notice. It was delivered to 47, Dune Road at 6 p.m. via process server. Richard called me 17 times that night. I didn't answer. Victoria sent a long text about how I was destroying our family, how Mom would be ashamed, how I was choosing money over love. I replied with one sentence, the house was never Mom's to give away. It was always mine. You have 30 days. The next morning, I drove to Nag's Head. I let myself in with my key, to my house. Richard and Victoria were packing. They'd moved in the day after the funeral, apparently confident the will would hold. Richard saw me and his face went hard. You're really doing this? Throwing us out? You tried to steal my house using my dead mother's will. Yes, I'm really doing this. Your mother wanted Victoria to have this. My mother wanted a lot of things. She wanted me to fund her fantasy. She wanted me to stay quiet. She wanted me to accept being written out of her legacy after I paid for it. But what she wanted doesn't change what she owned. And she didn't own this. Victoria was crying again. Real tears this time. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know, Victoria. Maybe ask your father. Maybe get a job. Maybe figure out how to fund your own coastal grandmother aesthetic. I walked through the house. The custom window treatments I'd paid for. The kitchen I'd renovated. The furniture I'd bought. All of it mine. They were gone by the end of the week. I changed the locks. I hired a property manager. I listed it as a vacation rental. The income is $4,200 a month during peak season. It's been 2 months. I haven't heard from Richard or Victoria. I heard through a cousin that they reclaiming I manipulated my dying mother into signing over property rights. The story doesn't hold up, my mother never owned it to sign over. Last weekend, I drove down to the beach house. I sat on the deck my money had built. I watched the ocean. I drank coffee from a mug I bought with my own money for a house I purchased with my own money that I almost lost to people who thought my grief made me stupid. The sunrise was beautiful. The house was quiet. The rental income was covering the mortgage Richard and my mother were supposed to pay but never did. I closed my eyes and thought about my mother's last words to me. Thank you for giving me peace, Bellamy. She got her peace. She died in a beautiful house, surrounded by beauty, convinced she'd secured her younger daughter's future at my expense. But peace isn't inherited. It's built. And I built this house. I own this house. And if that makes me selfish, then I'll be selfish with a deed in my name and a bank account that's no longer bleeding for people who thought real family meant not Bellamy. The coffee's hot. The deed's clear. The legacy is mine. And Victoria can appreciate beauty from somewhere else.